The American War of Independence was an armed conflict between the 13 colonies of North America, supported by France, against the British Empire. The war began because Britain granted the East India Company rights to sell tea in North America and increased taxes on many basic goods, which created a state of rebellion and revolution against the British government. Events developed into a war that led to the independence of the 13 British colonies to form the nucleus of the United States of America after the Treaty of Paris in 1783. In 1845, Texas seceded from Mexico and declared its accession to the United States of America, which led to the severing of relations between the two countries. Then, border skirmishes occurred between the two countries, leading to the outbreak of war in 1846, which led to the annexation of most of Mexico's lands, including the capital, Mexico City. The war ended with a treaty in 1848, which forced Mexico to give up vast areas, including California, Texas, and New Mexico, doubling the area of the United States. After the victory of the Republican candidate Abraham Lincoln in 1860, 11 Southern states declared secession and formed a Confederate alliance, which led to the outbreak of war in 1861 between the Union and the secessionist states. The cause of the conflict was the issue of slavery. In 1863, during the war, Abraham Lincoln announced the law abolishing slavery. The war continued until 1865, with the victory of the Allies, the unification of the states, and the beginning of a new era of civil rights. After the sinking of the American destroyer USS in Havana Harbor, Cuba, in 1898, the United States blamed Spain and declared war in support of Cuba's independence from Spanish rule. Within only 3 months, the United States achieved decisive victories in the Caribbean, Manila Bay, and the Pacific Ocean. The war quickly ended with the signing of the Treaty of Paris and Spain's ceding of Cuba, the Philippines, and Puerto Rico to the United States, beginning a new era of American hegemony as a superpower. In 1914, the world was engulfed in an unprecedented conflict. World War I began after the assassination of the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand during his visit to Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The war ignited between the Allies led by Britain, France, and Russia against the Axis powers led by Germany, Austria, Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. In 1917, the United States entered the
Europe
war
had
after a
experienced
series
decades of peace, but it was a bit of an illusion. On the one side, Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, which were known as the Central Powers, and on the other side, the alliance of Britain, France, and Russia.
Germany invades Belgium August 4th.
After the German invasion of Poland in 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany, and Europe and the world witnessed the largest battles in history. Then the Russian Federation joined the Allies after Germany attempted to occupy Moscow. In 1941, after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States entered the war, which tipped the balance of power in favor of the caliphs against the Axis powers. A series of wars began to liberate Europe and North Africa and control the Pacific Ocean. Berlin was invaded in May 1945, and Japan surrendered to America in August of the same year after dropping 2 nuclear bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. America became the first hegemon over all the countries of Europe and the world. In 1950, during the Cold War, the Korean War broke out when North Korean forces, backed by China and Russia, invaded South Korea with the aim of unifying the Korean peninsula under communist rule. U.S. forces led by the Allied powers intervened to support South Korea. The war witnessed ups and downs, victories and failures for each side. In late 1950, China intervened in the war, giving the Northern forces support. The fighting continued until an armistice was signed in July 1953. In 1955, the war began as a conflict between the U.S.-backed government of South Vietnam and the Communists in North Vietnam, backed by the Soviet Union. The U.S. used all its military power, including heavy aerial bombardment and ground invasions, but faced fierce resistance and strong guerrilla warfare, which led to heavy losses in the ranks of the U.S. Army. In 1973, the U.S. withdrew its forces from Vietnam after a series of defeats and pressure from the American people to end the war. In April 1975, Saigon fell to the Northern forces, ending the war with their victory. In August 1990, Iraqi forces led by Saddam Hussein invaded the state of Kuwait and declared it an Iraqi province. The United Nations issued a warning to Iraq, but Saddam refused to withdraw. In January 1991, Operation Desert Storm was launched under the leadership of the United States of America and the international coalition. The war began with the bombing of some Iraqi targets. In February of the same year, a ground operation to liberate Kuwait began under the leadership of the American International Coalition. Kuwait was liberated, a ceasefire was established, and America began to establish a foothold in the oil resources. This was the main reason for the campaign. On September 11, 2001, after the attacks on the World Trade Center in New York, America declared war on Afghanistan with the aim of overthrowing the Taliban regime. In October of the same year, the military campaign began, and the United States and its allies were able to quickly overthrow the Taliban regime. But the war did not end and turned into the longest conflict in American history until American forces withdrew from Afghanistan after 20 years without achieving the goals of the campaign, and the Taliban government returned in 2021 in one of the longest and strangest wars in history.